TheBlaze Radio Network. On demand.
The best of the Glenn Beck program.
Here's the problem. There is no one in the administration that can use the events of the day to make salient points. There's no one that can lay stuff out for the press or, for more importantly, for the United States, the people, the citizens, to explain, okay, look, the president yesterday, when he was in Russia 2 days ago, he made a mistake, and I'm sorry, I don't believe the whole misspoke thing, but he made a mistake. But let's see why. Why? What would force a guy or make a guy like Donald Trump? Okay, we've all explored. Oh, he's in the pocket of Putin. We've all explored that. If anybody's got any facts on that, bring it on. But you don't seem to have any facts. So could that be? Maybe. Well, he just loves thugs. Okay. Maybe he was charmed, because have you ever heard the saying, once you're a president, there is only a small number of people that can relate to you anymore, and those are former presidents. So imagine being the president of the United States. You ain't talking to George H.W. Bush. You're not talking to Jimmy Carter. Bill Clinton's not calling you. George Bush isn't calling you. You are all alone. Now, what did I say that Trump did to Kim Jong-un in North Korea? Do you remember? I said that he came into the room and sat down with him and said, "You're not alone.
I feel your pain.
I feel your pain. I got it. I got people coming after me all the time, too. I got it." And he related to him as a world leader. And so he became a big brother to this little punk. Now, I think that's what he probably tried to do, because he understood him. Well, I think Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin in some ways think alike. One is a killer, one is not a killer. But I think they see Donald Trump is a businessman. He's not a totalitarian. He doesn't think that way. He's a businessman. Vladimir Putin is a totalitarian. He'll kill you. He'll jail you. He'll do whatever. But what they have in common is get it done. So they relate to each other. Now, who's the big brother in this particular scenario? Would it be Trump trying to help Putin, or Putin trying to help Trump?
Clearly Putin.
Who's the one that has been trained their whole life to manipulate people?
Putin.
Okay. So, if I may, if you want to say that Putin made Trump his bee, okay, let's look at that seriously. I could see a scenario where Vladimir Putin sits down with Donald Trump and they're talking, and he says, "Listen, Donald, I so respect you. I think you're a wonderful businessman, but I've been around the block a few times, and listen, you got to get a hold of the press. They're just doing all kinds of things." I know, right? Did you have anything to do with hacking? No, I had nothing to do with it. They're trying to split us apart, Donald. Now listen, Hillary Clinton and the DNC, ask about those servers. Why is it that those servers have not been investigated? Why is it that Mr. Peter Strzok had all of that information for a year and did nothing, while he's looking at you and saying, "Oh, something going on in Trump Tower"? Listen, I've been through this a million times. I think that is a possibility.
Mm-hmm.
And because Donald Trump doesn't have anybody he can relate to at this level, and Vladimir Putin's never done anything to me, but I think the FBI is dirty. I don't know if I can trust them. That's a possibility. That is a possibility. Him being in the pocket because they have pictures of him, being weed on by a girl? I don't think so. You would have come up with that by now. But yesterday I outlined, and I said that there were 5 investigations going on, and he couldn't separate them. I'd like to reintroduce this theory because this is important not for him and not for Hillary Clinton and not for Barack Obama and not for the FBI, but for you. This is important for you because I think that this is what Donald Trump is feeling. I don't even know if he thinks it, but it's what he's feeling. And he's a guy who, they say, we give him briefings. He reads them, sometimes he doesn't read them. He listens, sometimes he doesn't. He goes with his gut. So that's all based on feeling. So listen to this. There were 5 scandals that make this whole thing come together. And I'm going to go through them real quickly. The Trump Tower, the meeting with Paul Manafort and the KGB agent, the dossier, the document produced by the Democrats for Fusion GPS.
This is all the stuff, essentially, that Mueller is investigating. Correct.
There's 7 of these that have made all this up. Trump Tower, Fusion GPS, the election fraud that happened the hacking that happened in Illinois, the Russian bots, the Facebook, fake ads, the DNC hacking, where they took the DNC servers on WikiLeaks, the Hillary emails are also in this, the Amran Awan, the guy who is the Pakistani that had the servers in D.C. Those are 7 things. I want to take them apart one by one because something happened yesterday after the show, because somebody called in yesterday and said, Glenn, what are we just going to take? How did they even track this? How do they know that Russia did this? Those indictments, are we just going to take the Democrats' word for it? And so I said, you know what? I don't have the answer. Well, I put my research staff on it and found, how did the FBI come up with this? It is remarkable on several levels. And either the NSA is lying to us now, or they were lying to us then, or something new has happened in technology. But it matters to you how they found it. It's stunning. But it also, once I found that, it led me right to, wait a minute. If you can do that, you can't solve these other minor crimes? Because when you see how they solved it, it's like saying to the president, okay, we got these 7 robberies. And, okay, we solved the one where we broke into Fort Knox and stole all the gold. And we that was easy. We got that done in a couple of weeks. But we can't seem to pick the lock on this guy's front door. It doesn't make sense. And it's important if we want to restore our security and our trust in the government. Okay, so we have all 7 of these. What they've solved, I think what we've solved here is the Russian bots. We know that Russia was planting through real people in their underpants in the basement of Russia and Russian bots planting stories to tear us apart and ads, right?
Yep.
So we know that.
Yes.
Who solved that? Mark Zuckerberg. So the Facebook police solved that one. Okay. Number 2, Trump Tower. Would you say that one has been
fully vetted?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. We believe, unless any new information comes out, we believe that this was a Russian setup. And I think they would have.
But there was no collusion.
There was no collusion. I think there would have been collusion had they actually offered something, but they didn't. So why did the Russian KGB agent do this? It is a typical, I shouldn't say a KGB, it's GRU now, but that's worse. That's the military version of the KGB. Why would they do that? It is typical of Russia and their tactics to set somebody up, to start a bunch of fires, and then make one obvious lob that makes that person look guilty.
Glenn Beck.
Get out your postmodern rulebook because I got a fresh new edition for you. This time it's from the University of Minnesota. And the policy is so steeped in postmodern terminology that it practically prances off the page with a hashtag resist hat on its head. Here it is. Equality and access, gender identity, gender expression, names and pronouns, which states that members of the academic institution are expected now to use the names and gender identities and pronouns specified to them by university members. So let me translate here. College students can freely decide their gender, and any faculty who fails to respect their highly malleable identity will face punishment. All right. Now bear with me because it's about to get really pretentious here. And it's important to decipher what they're actually saying so we can respond respectfully and tactfully. Here's the policy. Individuals may access gender-specific facilities that correspond with their gender identities and may participate in university activities and programs consistent with their gender identities, including but not limited to housing, restrooms, locker rooms, recreation services, activities, and camp programs. Individuals will not be required to use their gender-specific facilities that are inconsistent with their gender identity or use gender-inclusive options because their sex assigned at birth or sex listed on legal documents differs from their gender identity or gender expression. So let me translate again. Anything goes here. As long as the student's highly subjective gender reality is unwaveringly respected, everything's going to be okay. Now, this would be satire, but it's really not. It's called postmodernism. In other news, the same group of students are hosting a parade for science. Now, when's the last time we had a good science parade? You know, they are, I'm not making this up, they are donning their vulva-shaped beanies. And they're going to march around an effigy of President Trump for not letting them morph into any gender, race, or age they like, because somehow or another, it's science, man. It's science.
Glenn Beck.
We have Tika Tiwari on with us. Now, Tika, so you know, full disclosure, he is an advertiser, or his company is an advertiser on this, the Palm Beach Letter, on this program. But he is a guy that we found and really did our homework with. We were looking for somebody who could teach me and Stu and the staff about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. And that's kind of how we kind of came into business, because he taught us, and we're like, you should teach a class on this. And so he does, and it's gotten rave reviews. And tomorrow night, we're doing a free broadcast. It's a webinar, if you will. You can only see it at, I think it's beckcryptoshow.com, and you have to register, but it's absolutely free. Tika, welcome.
It's great to be here. Thank you.
So you were a hedge fund guy.
Yes.
And you have been in Wall Street for forever. Mm-hmm. And you were heavily invested in tech back in the 90s.
Correct.
And things were going well until they didn't.
Right.
What happened?
So in 1990 to 1991, we experienced a terrible bear market. My average tech stock was down 50%. My worst tech stocks like Oracle were down 85%. Oracle, yeah. Down 85%, split adjusted price of 12.5 cents. It was an absolute horror show. And I made one of the worst mistakes of my life, Glenn. I confused what was a temporary pullback in an ongoing uptrend and I sold a lot of my stocks. 2 big ones, actually, Microsoft and Oracle.
Oh, my.
And I did the math, and by the end of the decade, if I had just held on, I would have made an extra $20 million by the end of the decade. It was unbelievable, but the advantage of that is that it's really helped me navigate the type of volatility we've seen in the crypto markets.
So I've been saying recently that, and this kind of a hybrid of what you said, and I'd like to have you explain it better than I can, that what's happening with cryptocurrency right now is kind of like the .com bubble bursting, where that was all about pets.com, not about the internet.
Right.
So this bubble that may have popped, that's not about cryptocurrency.
It's not about cryptocurrency, but I will say one thing. I think it's a mistake to call it a bubble, because bubbles, when they burst, you have a complete destruction of value, right? And if the value is reclaimed, it usually takes 10 to 15 years. So if you look at the NASDAQ, it took 15 years for that value to be reclaimed. If you look at housing, it took almost 10 years for that value to be reclaimed. But if you look at Bitcoin has dropped 4 times over 70%. In 2011, it dropped 94%. In 2013, it dropped 70%. And then in 2014, it dropped 85%. And this time it's dropped 71%. And yet, even if you had bought at the high of Bitcoin at every single one of its moves, you still would have made almost 10 times your money. That's not a bubble. That's not a bubble. That is a large-scale secular bull market that experiences a lot of volatility.
So I have to tell you, because I've kept my money in Bitcoin, but it freaks me out. It freaks me out. Now, today, the biggest move in Bitcoin has happened, I think, in the year?
Yeah.
It's up to 7,000 or over 7,000.
7,700.
Okay.
Right.
What happened?
Okay, so what I've been saying all along is that 2018 is the year when individuals have been getting scared out of crypto as institutions have really finally started to wake up to crypto. They've been running into cryptocurrency, and so that news is just starting to break. So yesterday we discovered that BlackRock, the largest asset manager in the world, $6 trillion under management, guess what? They're looking at launching Bitcoin ETFs. Now, this is even as Larry Fink, their CEO, last year basically said that Bitcoin was just used for money launderers, right? Absolutely talking Bitcoin down. But lo and behold, now they're talking about doing rolling out a bunch of ETFs. Then we've seen.
Now, what is an ETF?
So an ETF is an exchange traded fund. It's like a mutual fund. And so the advantage of an ETF is that right now you've got to go through a couple of hurdles in order to buy Bitcoin. But with an ETF, you can log into your online broker. You can just hit the buy button, buy the Bitcoin ETF, and now you own Bitcoin. You don't have to worry about storing it. You don't have to worry about, a 42-letter code. You don't have to worry about losing your code. It's going to make it so much easier to buy and own Bitcoin. And now the market is starting to wake up to that. The market is starting to realize that institutions that were talking badly about Bitcoin all last year and in the first half of this year are actually getting deeply involved. And that's very bullish.
When are we going to start seeing Bitcoin be used in, I go in to buy a pair of jeans at the Gap?
I don't know that that's the best use case for Bitcoin.
A cryptocurrency.
Yeah, so that's actually in the process right now. Just yesterday, MasterCard announced that they had filed a patent that will allow them to use Bitcoin with their MasterCard. So you can use your MasterCard, spend your Bitcoin, and they figured out a way where you don't have to wait 10 minutes for a confirmation time. So that's happening, and this is a big mistake that I see people making with Bitcoin. They have this old narrative that Bitcoin really is slow and expensive, and it's not really very useful. But the thing to remember about Bitcoin is it's technology, and technology is iterative. It gets better and better every single year. The way that when the internet first came out, it was slow. You really couldn't do anything with it, and then all of a sudden we had broadband, and lo and behold, the internet's everywhere.
So let me shift gears just a little bit.
Sure.
Stay on Bitcoin, but the news came out about these indictments in Russia.
Yes.
And we were looking into it yesterday. Okay, how did we get the information? Because a listener called up and said, how do we know? So we went back and we looked. The NSA tracked these GRU guys, military KGB, if you will, and tracked them to a crypto wallet.
Right.
And then they tracked that wallet, or they tracked that money to a VPN, which is what you need to go onto the dark web.
Right.
Then they tracked those players in the dark web. It's my understanding, is people say all the time, it's just money laundering. Only the people that are using Bitcoin or the dark web are bad people. Probably right about the dark web,
right?
But not necessarily about Bitcoin. But I thought it was untraceable.
It is not untraceable. The cryptography is unbreakable. It is pseudo-anonymous. So every single transaction that happens in Bitcoin shows up on the Bitcoin blockchain, and anybody can see it. So if you can be tied to just one purchase, right? If they can say, okay, Tika bought this then they can go and trace all the way back through the Bitcoin blockchain.
They're just looking for that number.
They're looking for that number, and then they can unfold everything. To use Bitcoin to break the law, you've got to be dumber than two rocks in a sock. It's just not bright to do that. When I speak to prosecutors off the record, they say, Tika, we love it when criminals are stupid enough to use Bitcoin, because it's like they're leaving a trail for us to follow. They've only got to tie them back to one transaction, and they can unfold everything. I can't believe that these Russian agents didn't use cash. They would have been much better off using cash than using Bitcoin.
Is that your understanding of it, Pat?
It certainly wasn't until now.
No. I had no idea. I thought that's what people, that's what everybody pro and con say about Bitcoin. Well, you'll have your money and they won't be able to take it from you. They won't be able to track you.
They can't take it from you, and they can't take it from you. But again, if you can be traced back to just one transaction, they can then see everywhere that you've spent your money. Now,
they can't break it open to see my account.
No, they can't break it open to see your account. They can't break it open to take it from you. But there are steps that you can take to remain anonymous using Bitcoin. But I mean, they're very detailed. I'm not going to go into that. They're very detailed. Shocking that the Russians didn't know how to do that. But not a smart move to use Bitcoin if you want to break the law.
Were you at all amazed at how the NSA got those guys?
No, the NSA has so much more ability than we even know. I mean, they're in everything. So
I mean, there
is no privacy in the United States. There's no privacy in the world anymore.
In the world, yeah. I don't think people really understand that.
Yeah. That
there's no privacy, and that's one of the reasons why I think, Bitcoin rides on the back of the blockchain.
Mm-hmm.
And can you explain the blockchain?
Sure. Okay, I will do that. So the blockchain is a collection of computers called nodes, and there's about 5,000 of them in the Bitcoin blockchain, and they all have the exact same copy of the ledger, right? So it's like if you go to a bank and you withdraw $100 from Citibank, and then you go to a different bank and try to withdraw the same $100, you can't, because they share the ledger, and they say, well, Tika, you already took the money. You can't take it twice. Right. Now, that whole system relies on trust. And generally, it works until it doesn't. Whereas the Bitcoin network has this shared ledger. So if I try to spend a Bitcoin and then try to spend it again, all the ledgers first say, okay, before we agree that Tika can spend this again, let me look at these other 5,000 ledgers and see if they agree. And so if
that's what takes the 10 minutes.
That's what takes the 10 minutes. So they look at all the ledgers and they say, oh no, Tika's already spent that Bitcoin. He can't double spend it. And then they reject it. So that process is called reaching consensus. And what makes Bitcoin so powerful is that it's extremely difficult to rewrite data on the blockchain. People have been trying to do it for 10 years, and they haven't been able to do it.
Well, you can't, because if I understand it, a blockchain is a chain of numbers, and yours is in the middle of that.
Right.
And they're all sequential, and they all say this is the last time it was used or opened.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
So if I go in and let's say I put a picture or an email in a blockchain, this is security and privacy. We know that's the original picture because if anyone tries to open it, it disrupts the blockchain.
Right.
And so the entire chain falls apart, and you'll be like, no, it couldn't. It was opened at this time because look at the numbers on each side.
And that's what makes it so powerful. It's tamper-proof. And so companies now are using it to secure documents. They'll take what's called a hash of a document, which is basically reducing a document down to a number, putting that into the blockchain. And then what happens is the blockchain constantly checks the document and does the hash calculation. And if the hash calculation changes, it means that somebody has tampered with the document. And then you immediately know that that document has been changed. So one of the ideas that I like, which I'll talk about another time, is working with the banks, because we know the banks have this history of going back and changing mortgage documents. Yeah. Now with the blockchain, they won't be able to do that.
So this stops things for like Wells Fargo.
I didn't want to say Wells Fargo, but yes.
Yes.
It stops this absolute fraud by Wells Fargo.
So it is a part of our life, for sure.
For sure.
For sure.
For sure.
Okay, so tomorrow night we're going to do something at 8 o'clock. It's you can find it at beckcryptoshow.com. You don't have to pay anything. It's a free thing. Just come and watch. And you're giving names of 3 cryptocurrencies.
Correct.
And you are so positive on these that these are big movers?
In my opinion, they're going to be huge movers. And we're also giving away $200 worth of Bitcoin.
Okay.
As well.
And so all you have to do is register, and you'll get the names of those 3. We're also going to be taking your questions on blockchain and Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. It's a show that you don't want to miss. He's also going to be explaining some things on what is changing that is going to make you think Bitcoin is going to go up to how much this year?
At least $40,000.
This year.
Glenn, I know it sounds crazy. July 12th of last year, I sat in front of a camera similar to this, and Bitcoin was at $1,850, down 40% for the year. And there was an event I just found out through one of my contacts, and I said, look, people don't realize how important this is. This event is going to happen later this year, and it's going to take Bitcoin to at least $10,000. People thought I was insane, and we hit 20K. I am telling you, we're going to 40K before year end.
You'll find out what that is tomorrow. All you have to do is register online at beckcryptoshow.com. It happens tomorrow. Watch it live, 8 p.m. Tika, we'll talk to you tomorrow. Thank you so much.
Glenn Beck.
Pat and I are very, very outraged today. I mean, we're all addicted to outrage. So we are getting high off of our outrage today, coming from MSNBC legal expert. Now, she said that the Helsinki summit was really bad. Now, I'm going to play the audio for you, but I want you to question, why are you outraged? Why are you outraged? And I think it's going to be very obvious until Pat and I tell you exactly why you should be outraged. And it has nothing to do with what you're actually going to be outraged by. Watch, listen.
It's just as serious to me as the Cuban Missile Crisis in terms of an attack or the 9/11 attack. The president is taking the side of the people who attacked us instead of trying to prevent a future attack. He has done nothing to make sure that the elections 4 months away are going to be safe. And I would say that his performance today will live in infamy as much as the Pearl Harbor attack or Kristallnacht.
It's outrageous.
Kristallnacht. Okay. All right. Okay. So, I kind of understand the Cuban Missile Crisis or 9/11. The president is taking the side of the guys who are attacking us and doing nothing to prepare. Okay? But this is as big as Kristallnacht, will be remembered in history as Kristallnacht or Pearl Harbor. Now, why are people outraged, Pat?
Because that's a ridiculous comparison that you can't compare what happened day before yesterday to Kristallnacht, which was much more serious. And Pearl Harbor, I mean, 2,403 people died in Pearl Harbor.
Okay.
100 Jews died on Kristallnacht night.
Right.
Plus 30,000 were sent to concentration camps.
Okay. So it's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
That's where the average person is.
Yes.
They're outraged because they're like, that's ridiculous. And Pat and I agree with you. It is ridiculous. But only because she didn't go far enough.
Not nearly.
Now I want you to think about this. Pat, how many people died at Pearl Harbor?
2,403.
How many people died on Monday?
6,775 in the United States alone.
In the United States alone. Globally, 181,361 people died on Monday. It was a bloodbath.
Sure was.
A bloodbath. Now it was natural causes, but 181,361 people died.
Some of them bled.
Right. How many people died on the day of Kristallnacht?
On the day of?
The day of.
100.
100. I don't know. What's worse? 100 or 181,361?
It's ridiculous.
I can't believe
ridiculous
how they have the audacity to say Kristallnacht was as bad as what happened on Monday.
What, is she married to Donald Trump?
Oh, my gosh.
To excuse his actions like that
is crazy.
It's incomprehensible.
You know what? It's probably better to compare it to Hiroshima or Nagasaki.
Well, we did a little research on this.
Okay. All right.
Hiroshima, from 90 to 90,000, maybe 39,000 to 90,000 died.
On that day?
On that day. No, not even on that day. It was the next 3 to 4 months.
Okay, well, that's not.
In Nagasaki, it was 100. It was 80 to 146,000.
On that day or the next 4 months?
The next 4 months.
How many on that day?
About half of that was that day alone. So if you just take the low estimate, it's 129,000 people.
181,000 died on
every
Monday.
Day. It could go all the way up to 226,000, but that's including the next 4 months.
Oh, that's not right. This is... MSNBC.
It's an outrage.
Stop underplaying how bad this really was.
Glenn Beck.
A blast from the past. And, remember those signs that used to have George Bush and it, just said, "Miss me yet"? When I play this voice, you're going to say to yourself, no. No, I don't. Here's Barack Obama. I've got 3 cuts from him. Let's start with him talking about his money.
That maintains some form of progressive taxation so that rich people are still rich, but they're given a little bit back to make sure that everybody else has something to pay for universal health care and retirement security. I should add, by the way, right now I'm actually surprised by how much money I got. And let me tell you something. I don't have half as much as most of these folks, or a tenth or 100th. There's only so much you can eat. There's only so big a house you can have. There's only so many nice trips you can take.
Okay, stop. This is the problem with Barack Obama and socialists. Socialists don't understand the concept of not being just a consumer. You see, what he's saying is there's only so big of a house that you can have. There's only so much you can eat. Well, I believe I'm challenging the whole eating thing, so we're going to leave that one off the table. But it doesn't mean that you're... What he's saying is, I've got enough to have a really nice house, to take my trips, to do things that I want to do. What he didn't ask is, how many jobs can I create? How many things can I fund that will create a better world for people personally? Now, you can be like J. Paul Getty. J. Paul Getty was he was the richest man in the history of the world. J. Paul Getty got all of his money from oil. And he was actually the guy who convinced Saudi Arabia, I know you got a lot of oil down here. Let's bring it up. And they're like, well, we could bring it up, but there's no way to get it across the ocean. J. Paul Getty said, yeah, there is. He's the guy who invented the super tanker. Oh, you mean the super tanker like the Exxon Valdez? Oh, my gosh, killing all the ducks? Yeah, and also building the world. So what he did is he was a miser. He was greedy. He was cheap. He was bad to his family, but he paid the price for that. His family was destroyed by the money because he didn't have a healthy outlook on it. However, look at what he built. Look how many people he employed. Because of that petroleum that he pulled out of the ground in Saudi Arabia and brought it all around the world in super tankers, think about how life changed for everybody. So it's not just about how big of a house he has. What has he done with that money, and how did he earn that money? And I find it interesting that President Obama talked about how poor he was going into the White House, and now he doesn't even know how much money he has leaving the White House. What the hell did you do? Public service? He's not the guy to talk to you about money. Now, let me go on the next piece, and that is identity politics. Here he is on identity politics.
But democracy demands that we're able also to get inside the reality of people who are different than us, so we can understand their point of view. Maybe we can change their minds, but maybe they'll change ours. And you can't do this if you just out of hand disregard what your opponents have to say from the start. And you can't do it if you insist that those who aren't like you, because they're white or because they're male, somehow there's no way they can understand what I'm feeling.
Oh my God!
Somehow they lack standing to speak on certain matters.
The hypocrisy.
He lived this complexity.
Okay, stop. I can't take anymore. My head will explode.
Gosh.
Let me just go down memory lane here. You have the cut of Obama and identity politics, please. No. The new one from Mike. Sarah, please.
I'll make our government open and transparent.
No.
So that anyone...
The race one.
The point I was making was not that my grandmother harbors any racial animosity. She doesn't.
No.
But she is a typical white person.
African Americans in communities where I've worked, there's been notion of acting white, which sometimes is overstated, but there's an element of truth to it where, okay, if boys are reading too much, then, well, why are you doing that? Or why are you speaking so properly? And the notion that there's some authentic way of being black, that if you're going to be black, you have to act a certain way
or
and wear a certain kind of clothes. That has to go.
And they're saying, excuse me, we want the keys back. We don't mind the Republicans joining us. They can come for the ride, but they got to sit in back.
There are very few African-American men in this country who haven't had the experience of being followed when they were shopping in a department store. That includes me. The Cambridge police acted stupidly. There is a long history in this country of African Americans being stopped by law enforcement disproportionately. That's just a fact.
So wait a minute. I can't understand because I'm white. You're saying now that that's wrong, that I should have a seat at the table. But I never felt that way in America. I personally never felt unwelcome at the table. Now, that's my white privilege that I could check at the door. Wait a minute, you just said I don't really, I should just be able to express my point of view. Anyway, I never felt that way until President Obama got into office. I never felt that way. I don't think most white people felt this way. I don't think most white people felt that, especially white males, that we were somehow responsible for all evil in the world. But that's what we're being taught, and that's what is being taught to our kids now. And weren't you part of that, Mr. President? He also says that we shouldn't lie. We need politicians and presidents that won't lie. May I remind you, Mr. President, of your tenure in the office? This.
I'll make our government open and transparent so that anyone can ensure that our business is the people's business. Because when I'm president, meetings where laws are written will be more open to the public, no more secrecy. That's a commitment I make to you as president. No more secrecy. When there's a bill that ends up on my desk as president, you, the public, will have 5 days to look online and find out what's in it before I sign it. Shovel-ready transportation projects already approved. Shovels are breaking ground and cranes dot the sky. Shovels will soon be moving earth and trucks will soon be pouring concrete. I said this once or twice, but it bears repeating. If you've got health insurance, you like your doctor, you like your plan, you can keep your doctor, you can keep your plan. What we do know is that the natural protests that arose because of the outrage over the video.
The video. That was Benghazi. Okay, thank you, Mr. President, for the lecture on money, on honesty, and let's not divide people. I appreciate the refresher. Miss me yet? Nope.
Not at all.
Nope. Thank you.
Glenn Beck.
Finally, a beautiful Sunday in your picturesque Bayside city. You paid good money to move here. It's not cheap. The $150,000 range leaves you with just about middle-class housing. In Ohio, that'd buy you a small town. But this is better than Ohio, you tell yourself. Sure, the city isn't as scenic as the postcards, but, here you are. The YMCA fields. You're coaching your soccer team, your kids' soccer team. Today's the co-ed under-8 soccer final. Really, it's their World Cup. You bought the good oranges and Capri Sun, the special kind with the cold, sensitive images on the front. You worked hard for this moment. Your job is demanding, and sometimes you're there 60, 70 hours a week just to make ends meet in this city. But somebody needs to coach the soccer team, so here you are. And what? What is that? You see it. Your son is dribbling past the kid, shoving dandelions into the anthill, and he's going to score a goal. Yes, he is. He's going to do it. You're watching your son, and then all of a sudden, right as your son's leg angles back to kick the ball, you hear an animalistic scream behind you. You don't know what it is. You quickly turn around, and you see a man shrieking, "Ah!" as he squats over the sidewalk. Welcome to San Francisco. You know what he's doing. He's taking a big dump on the sidewalk. Now, following the death of Mayor Ed Lee, San Francisco Mayor London Breed inherited quite a mess. A lot of crap in San Francisco. San Francisco is in absolute shambles, despite topping nearly every list of the nation's highest cost of living prices. San Francisco has been plagued by homelessness, often with unbelievable negative consequences.
You're a native of San Francisco. Is this the worst you've seen it?
I will say that there's more feces on the sidewalks than I've ever seen. Growing up here, that was something that wasn't the norm.
Than you've ever seen.
Than I've ever seen, for sure. And that is a huge problem. And we're not just talking about from dogs, we're talking about from humans.
How can a city with some of the most expensive rent prices in the world also have neighborhoods that are being compared to actual slums because of the amount of human feces, trash, and needles everywhere?
There are a lot of people who have been pushed out of some of these places where you now have people paying these prices. About 70% of the people who are estimated to be homeless now in San Francisco were actually housed in San Francisco before they became homeless. We have to make sure that people who live here, sadly people who are homeless here, that they're also held accountable for taking care of our streets.
Okay, so they were just good people until they went homeless. Okay, I understand good people losing their homes, and at what point do they start crapping in the street? At what point do they start saying, you know what, I'm also going to be a heroin user that craps in the street. If I could only get a clean needle. Somehow or another that breaks down for me. I'd like to add the segment that begins with the footage of Mayor Breed walking around San Francisco. As she passes a group of homeless people in this video, at least one person is openly injecting themselves with heroin. Now, you don't get that every day walking around a town with your mayor. You know, he's not hiding it. I'm just having a little heroin, babe. That's it. I shouldn't have to say this, but helping the disadvantaged is a really good thing. I mean, even if you read that out-of-date dusty book called The Bible, or however you pronounce that now, you know it's very clear. Speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves, for the rights of all who are destitute. Speak up, judge fairly, defend the rights of the poor and the needy. That's from Proverbs. Whoever oppresses the poor shows contempt for their maker, but whoever is kind to the needy honors God. Look at his disciples, Jesus said. Blessed are you who are poor. Yours is the kingdom of God. Blessed are you who hunger now, for you'll be satisfied. Blessed are you who weep now, for you will laugh. That comes from Luke. That Bible's riddled with stuff like this. But are you doing good to the poor? Are you helping them get back on their feet? You know, I was in this really successful AA group. Well, it wasn't really AA. It was just more of a group of alcoholics. And the philosophy was, if somebody would just give me free, clean alcohol, I'm eventually going to get off it. If I could just have a nice place that I could go to get drunk that has a clean glass, I am on my way to sobriety. It doesn't work that way. San Francisco, the way you're dealing with the poor is killing the poor. Walk around the city. You're going to see a lot of $1,000 tents that function as homes. Gifts from the good-natured but ultimately misguided people who function now more as enablers than rescuers. You have set up injection sites where homeless heroin addicts are provided with clean syringes and allowed to shoot up without any punishment. This doesn't work. Why is it progressives, when something doesn't work, they say, we're going to double down? Instead of looking at it and saying, is there anything anywhere else that does work? God bless the homeless. God bless them. God bless those who are working tirelessly every day to help them. But we need to find a better way to help people, because this isn't working.
It's Wednesday, July 18th. You're listening to the Glenn Beck Program.
You know, Ben Franklin, he went to England, and he wrote a letter to one of his friends in England and says, I was just there, and, something has become very, very apparent to me. And that is, what you're doing to the poor is enslaving the poor. Because you're just giving them handouts. You're just going and meeting them on the street and feeding them, and that doesn't work. Some people have to be taken off the street, and they need care. Others don't. They don't mind living this way. And the best thing you can do to help them is to make them uncomfortable in their poverty. Now, I'm not saying we go poke homeless people with sticks, but we don't make it easy. We find ways to make it attractive to get back into society. A society that says, I don't think we should poop in the streets. I made this sign, and I'm going to give this to San Francisco. You can download this at glennbeck.com. You can have it for free. You can post this anywhere in your store window. It's just the no human pooping sign. It's
an attractive sign, too.
It is. Yeah. Well, it's international, so you don't have to read. You could be on heroin and understand that, right?
I think so.
It might look like you shouldn't sit on a Hershey's Kiss.
Yeah, you could make that mistake.
Right. So if
there's
I don't
no
read,
sitting on a Hershey's Kiss here?
Yeah, maybe we might want to rethink that.
Yeah.
Because that may be what the signal is being sent to people who don't read English. But it's a guy squatting, with a little poop underneath him and the hash through that. Maybe if we put eyes on the poop, will people understand that then?
Yeah, because they get emojis.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Homeless people get the emojis, right?
I think so.
It'll look a little better if it has eyes on the poop.
You believe it? I mean, I was just talking about this the other day, and was it 2014 we were in San Francisco for the Super Bowl?
Yeah.
And we stayed at Nicolas Cage's old house, which was a $15 million house. It was nice, but, it's San Francisco, so it was
like a $150,000 house elsewhere.
It was. If it was in Texas,
it really was. It really was. It was
maybe 95 or 100,000.
Yeah,
15 million in San Francisco.
Yeah, but it was crazy.
Here we are on a street with $15 million homes, and there was poop on that block
on the sidewalk.
There was human feces
all up and down the. It was
a lot of it.
2 or 3 blocks away from. Wasn't that It was a Bentley and Rolls Royce dealership, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So this was like the nice section of town, and we're walking, and it's Pat and Stu, me, and I think Rafe, and we're all walking, and our security is a ways back. And we're just walking, 4 guys, and we keep saying, "Look out for the poop! Look out for the poop!" Oh my gosh! Look at the underwear with the poop in it. Remember that one?
Yeah.
Look at the underwear that's on the sidewalk with poop in it. This is so disgusting. Then we turn a corner, and we're still in the nice section, and the homeless, they're militant. And remember, I don't know who first brought it up, but we're talking to each other saying, I don't feel comfortable here, and I certainly wouldn't want my wife and my kids walking down the street.
No way.
This is a neighborhood.
At night? No.
$15 million houses. Are you crazy? How you pay taxes in San Francisco and put up with that is beyond me. Well, you're all like-minded, I guess.
It's just since they've had like 60 years of this going on.
It was 1964 was the last time they didn't have a Democratic progressive mayor. 1964.
So they don't know any different anymore. They don't know there's another way.
No.
They're so trapped in their little progressive mindset that this is just how it is.
Yeah. They've been incompetent since 1964. They've been incontinent since 2012. And I think that's... I worked on some slogans.
It's good. I like it.
I worked on some slogans.
Catchy one.
San Francisco, a great place to take a dump.
Okay.
San Francisco, America's postmodern crap hole. San Francisco, where your sidewalk is our toilet.
Nice. Okay.
F cisgender norms. Take a dump on our sidewalk no matter what you identify as.
That's inclusive right there. I like that. That's inclusive and tolerant.
You know, if you had just the kind of guys, some like illegal aliens dressed as banditos, you could go, toilets? We don't need no stinking toilets. There's San Francisco underneath it.
Okay.
That wouldn't be. Of course we give out free needles and crap on the sidewalk. A prison is our biggest tourist attraction. I think that's pretty good.
It's kind of pragmatic. I like it.
How about this? This is a commercial, okay? Two guys are walking on the sidewalk, and one guy stumbles over some feces, and he's like, you have my feces on your sidewalk. And the other guy says, you have my sidewalk in your feces. And then it just goes to feces peanut butter cups.
I like the nostalgia of that.
Yeah, it's kind of a...
It's nice. Sends you back to childhood. That's good.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah. Let's see. We're right down the street. We're right down the street from Silicon Valley. So the people who are allowing others to poop in the streets are the same people teaching AI ethics.
A tad wordy, but...
It's a little wordy, yeah.
But gets the job done.
Yeah. Silicon Valley thinks their crap doesn't stink. We're not uppity snobs in San Francisco. We know our crap stinks, especially in the hot afternoon sun.
Again, it's a little wordy. But
okay, all right.
Effective.
Our sidewalks make you pine for the simpler times of LSD and the Manson family.
Oh, that's
kind of
another nostalgic one. That's good.
Yeah. San Francisco. See our giant sequoias and our huge piles of poop.
Simple.
That's
straightforward.
Yeah.
I like it.
San Francisco. Proving Darwin is correct. Come take a crap in the street and fling it at somebody you don't know. I've got more, but okay. I'm still working on it. I would like to
work in progress.
Yeah, I'd like to put some of the travel brochures together for San Francisco because, or maybe we come up with some San Francisco T-shirts and hats.
Well, you're a helper. You're a helper.
I'm just trying to help them.
Yeah,
that's all I'm trying to do.
I love how they were bragging the other day that millions of tons less garbage makes it to their landfill than any other city in America. Well, yeah, that's because they dump it all in your street.
That's right.
It's not that you're recycling. It's all right there in your street.
Glenn Beck.
The best of the Glenn Beck Program.
Glenn Beck.
The best of the Glenn Beck Program.